Okay, so this is the last meeting for the first 2-week cleansers. Unless you're moving on to Cleanse 2.0, this is the first meeting for new cleansers that are starting on Monday. So I think that we can just call ourselves the Alliance of Gut Cleansers or whatever. We can come up with something way cooler than that if you want to. Someone can be tasked for that. But I do want to make sure that I go into Q&A and really clear the air as much as possible, because if you're not going into 2.0, you probably have a lot of questions on how to get back to regular life. And that's something that we can talk about. And if you still have some symptoms that you want to address, we should probably talk about that as well. So does anybody want to get started? Everybody's just perfect. I love it.
I just have like random questions.
Cool.
And I've just saved them all. So like normally before glut cleanse, I can't even say it. Before the GC, I always take like my vitamins, like I think I told you before, I take prenatals. I'm not pregnant. I just can't choke down regular multivitamins, B complex and all that. And I stopped doing that because I'm like, I don't know. I know specifically that a vitamin C pill I have has lactose in it, which was surprising, but I didn't want to take anything that wasn't on there. But I also don't want to not take my vitamins, which was a really backwards way of saying that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I gotcha.
Are there sneaky things, like sneaky sciencey words to look for to like call these things out?
Anything that ends with an OSE is typically going to be a dairy of some kind. Anything that ends with OL is typically going to be an alcohol of some kind, like a sugar alcohol.
Right.
You definitely want to stay away from those if you have bloating and diarrhea and things like that. Let's see. The gluten has so many aliases, it's insane. So if that's the case, I always think that it's a really good idea to just you could literally just Google blah 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 blah, does this have gluten, and it'll come up, or what is this? That's what I would do, because there's so many ingredients and there's so many fillers. I think that you should continue to take what feels good for you. So if you've been taking a multivitamin and that feels good, then absolutely continue taking it. Everything that I have on the gut cleanse and then the gut cleanse 2.0 are just supplemental for digestive restoration. It's not going to be anything outside of that. So if you're taking a vitamin C, that's great. Why are you taking that? Good, perfect, keep taking it. But what can you do that is going to help with your gut? That's all the supplements that I listed. So they're not really going to have an adverse side effect to anything that you're already doing, if that makes sense.
Also, just a side note, I made that smoky chili sweet potato. That is on point. So delicious, even when you forget to put in some of the ingredients like I did. But also I was like, I didn't have time to roast the sweet potatoes for 40 minutes because I was hungry and I wanted it now. So I made it all in the Instapot.
Yeah.
It went by super quick. So
awesome.
Fabulous.
That's awesome. I know. I love that you guys loved the recipe so much. This is like normal. This is my normal life at home. I just everybody. We are coming up at the end of the. Oh, hang on. Somebody talking. That sounded like me. That's not sound like me. Okay. Any other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
No, that was me. I accidentally pushed the play button on you.
Oh, I was like,
sorry.
Am I talking to myself? Is there, what is happening? That sounds like me, but okay. Kylie, go for it.
Okay, so as you know, going into spring break, And I know that you had mentioned that gluten takes 2 weeks to come out of your system or whatever. So I'm going to avoid that. But if I don't know, mess up and have dairy or, I mean, a drink, how long does that take to come out? I don't want to lose the 2 weeks.
Yeah, let me clarify. You guys metabolize, well, we all do. We metabolize sugar fairly quickly, and that usually gets out of the body fairly quickly. So does alcohol, that'll get out of the body fairly quickly, although the side effects of all of those things and the damage that they cause as they're in the body is something completely different. Dairy can live in the body for about 3 weeks. So dairy is the one that's a little bit longer. However, gluten unfortunately lives in the body for anywhere from 6 weeks to probably about 6 months, depending on how we metabolize those proteins. So, but if I were to say avoid one thing, if I just picked one, it's hard to, and it really depends on the story and the circumstance, right? So if you're like, I always have heartburn and it's awful and it's just like constant and I have GERD and reflux, I'd be like, you should probably avoid sugar and alcohol. If you said, you know, my head is like spinning and I have massive brain fog and I suffer from anxiety and depression, I would say you should probably avoid gluten. If you are constipated and not pooping regularly, and we're dealing with bloat and things like that, I would say dairy might be the issue. So there are symptoms that are typically associated with each of these inflammatory foods. However, it doesn't mean those always coincide. So Kylie, for you going into spring break, I think that since you've been doing the gut cleanse now for 2 weeks, I think that this is a really good time to be curious about how your body does respond to things. And, you know, maybe taking a journal. So I think you're doing the 2.0. So if you're doing the 2.0, there's a huge section on how to do that and how to kind of assess and figure out what makes the most sense for you going forward and how to do some data tracking. And so I would just go in with that open mind of, okay, I've been gut cleansing all day today, and tonight I'm going to have a glass of wine, and I'm going to go into this recognizing and really understanding how that makes me feel and what happens the next day, and then track it and go on from there. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah. I know how it'll make me feel the night of after 2 weeks not having it for 2 weeks. But the next day, yeah, I'll journal that. And then I've also taken myself off eggs through this process just to see. So if I reintroduce that, do I just do it for like one meal and I mean, it would be in the morning and then just journal the day?
Normally when you do a reintroduction of some kind, so what you'll do, Kylie, is you'll probably do like eggs first.
Okay.
So you could even do like eggs tomorrow because that metabolizes fairly quickly, but you could do eggs tomorrow. But you want to give your body exposure to it multiple times during the day to see if you're okay with eggs. So you can say like, can I have eggs once in a while for breakfast? Yeah, and then you can just have it for breakfast and see. If you want to see if you actually have a sensitivity to eggs, then you want to kind of push the egg issue a little bit on the body. So it's like, I'm going to have scrambled eggs, and then I'm going to have like an egg salad sandwich, and then I'm going to have a couple hard-boiled eggs with dinner. You kind of want to push the issue to see if you do have any type of inflammatory response, and then you really actually know. And it's better to have the answer than to just kind of tickle the idea a little bit and not know for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Totally.
Kelsey, I have a question. So I'm doing 2.0, but I'm curious to hear about, you had mentioned just like going back to real life, like what is that reintroduction like you were talking about with Kylie, or like what exactly did you mean?
So with 2.0, it's a couple things. I think I would encourage you guys to do what makes the most sense for your current lifestyle. You guys are all in a basic elimination, or you're going to be if you're starting on Monday in the gut cleanse. The 2-week gut cleanse is a basic elimination. Now, what you do with that is totally up to you. If you have more symptoms, or you're curious and you want to learn more about how your body responds to foods, I would encourage you to keep things out as long as you can, particularly the gluten and the dairy, because those are going to stay in the body for a lot longer, or at least their side effects linger for longer than the others. And if that's the case, then I would say you want to, then you reintroduce down the road, and we will talk about that more in the 2.0. But if you're like, I'm doing the 2.0 because I've had amazing progress with weight loss, with my sleeping, and you have just kind of a general good feeling, but you want to get back to regular life, then I would say continue into the 2.0, but then just like what I was saying with Kylie, is dabble around a little bit. So if you're like, I feel amazing today, but I'm so curious how I would feel if I had some sugar right now, and you had straight up like a freaking bag of Sour Patch Kids. I'm not condoning that, by the way, but I'm just saying, freaking have a bag of Sour Patch Kids, because that's straight up sugar. How do you feel? Do you feel like shit? Probably, but why and what happens? And does it cause issue with digestion? Does it cause migraines? Like, what is it causing? So going in with a very curious mind is huge. And then how much exposure is that? So there's no rules to how you do it. It really just depends on how you want to rock the next 2 to 4 weeks with the 2.0. Does that help?
Yeah.
What I would say, Paige, and to anybody that's doing this, is I don't recommend that you try multiple things at once. So if you're like, well, I think I'm gonna have a piece of cake that is glutinous, sugar, and frickin' buttercream on top, how the heck are you gonna know what you've responded to? Right? So I would break it up a little bit just to be curious. That's why I said Sour Patch Kids. There's no dairy in it, but there's no gluten in it. Who knows if there's gluten in it? But you know what I'm saying? So break it up into the categories. And if you're really curious, like I was saying with Kylie, is make sure you have the exposure and enough exposure to allow your body to have that immune response if it's going to.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Question. As we go back into normal life, should we be continuing any of the supplements like the digestive enzymes or probiotics, or avoiding any of those that we've kind of been taking? Yeah.
Holly, I think it kind of depends. I personally think that you guys should just take the supplements until they're gone, because you invested in them, so you may as well take them. But I go over them in a little bit more detail in 2.0, but the L-glutamine and the licorice is really about rebuilding the gut lining. This is extremely important when you think that you have leaky gut. And we talk about leaky gut a lot in 2.0 because most of us have a leaky gut. And you have a leaky gut if you have any like conditions that maybe aren't necessarily digestive. It's usually outside of that. So a leaky gut could be something where it manifests in depression, anxiety, headaches, fogginess, brain, skin issues. So like psoriasis and eczema and all of those things. Something outside of the digestive system will typically be an indicator that you're probably dealing with a leaky gut. So though, if anything like that rings a bell, you probably should continue to work on gut barrier and the barriers of your body in general. And then as far as the apple cider vinegar water or like lemon water. That's just going to be really good practice probably for the rest of your life, guys. Like honestly, because so many of us have issues with stomach acid and we think that we don't, but we do. And so that in itself is going to be really helpful to do forever. Do you have to do it 3 times a day? Probably not. Like, I mean, I only do it in the morning these days. And it's the apple cider vinegar. So it's like the worst thing in the world because I really do hate it, but I do it anyway. And so it really kind of depends because each supplement is a different situation. Digestive enzymes are important because digestive enzymes, as we get older, our enzymatic secretion is a lot less than it should be. It's less than ample for sure. And if that's the case, you're really not digesting your food as well as you could be in your stomach. And if you're not digesting your food as well as you could be in your stomach and you have a leaky gut, then you're having some serious problems because your immune system is not recognizing these 2-3 little molecular structures at all. They only recognize that. I think I talked about this last week. They only recognize a monosaccharide. They only recognize a single amino acid, and they only recognize a single fatty acid. So if you don't have enough stomach acid and you aren't breaking down your chicken and you have 2 amino acids that are stuck together and then they come through a leaky gut, your immune cells that are floating around your blood are looking at that and they're like, what the hell is this? And then they launch an attack. And that's what the leaky gut does. So it's like all of those together kind of come together is in really your digestive system. So when I was planning this in the 2-week cleanse and then also in the 2.0, it's how can we take another step towards optimizing from the mouth all the way down into the colon? I thought about every single organ. Long answer, sorry.
Thank you.
Kelsey, for
Kelsey.
Go for it, Christy.
for those of us that want to continue to just eliminate the gluten, the dairy, and the sugar on a regular basis, I'm curious how you feel. I'd emailed you about bread, for example, a gluten-free bread, but I'm wondering how you feel in general about substitutes. So like, you know, the healthier sweeteners, I'll call it fake cheese, some sort of dairy substitute cheese, what do you think about those in general?
It depends. I feel like I always say that. It does. It's a really good question. There are, so Nancy's going to come to my brain right now. Nancy's on the call. Not to put you on the spot, Nancy, but Nancy's doing this really cool thing where she is doing a blood sugar testing with after foods and things like that. And it's such an amazing way to see how your body responds, because we can only say, generally speaking, maple syrup isn't going to elevate your blood sugar as much as cane sugar. Well, we don't actually really 100% know that. That's just the assumption according to normal cohorts, or large cohorts, I should say. So with that being said, it's hard to say, but I can give you generalizations. I don't think that people should do agave syrup, because that is 10 times sweeter than sugar. And yes, it's natural, but no, just not great. I tend to stick with the maple syrups and the honey. And I do think that we should be thinking about sugar levels at all times being 10 grams or less per meal or per whatever it is that you're having. And that's not a lot, but that's enough. We are training our palate, we're training our tongue, and we're training our brain to crave sugar. And if you want to get off the craving sugar train, we get the hell off the craving sugar train, right? Get off. But gluten-free bread and things like that, there's a lot of really great breads out there. And I'm so glad that you brought this up, Christy, because I was having a couple other conversations today with my one-on-ones, and you guys can do some gluten-free breads that have sugar in them. Just be mindful of how much sugar is in them. Okay. So the gut cleanse in general is stay away from the sugar, but for the beauty of simplicity and ease and convenience, if you want to grab a bread that has some sugar in it, but it's like, oh, it has like, 1 gram of sugar per slice, that's okay. What we're really trying to do is just rid the body as much as possible. And if we need to shoot for convenience over a tiny bit of sugar, we can do that. That's okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey, there's a really good bread that I've discovered because I've been working with Amy, reducing dairy, sugar, all this even before. It's called Hemp Hooray. And it's at New Seasons and they're frozen and it's really good. It has no added sugar. It's good gluten-free. Like, I mean, you have to toast it because it's gluten-free bread, but it's something that I think it's a really good, especially on this cleanse, if you're trying to meet all those metrics, it seems to work really well.
I have not.
Also, I had a question about the apple cider vinegar because I feel like I've been like taking a shot of it and then drinking water because sipping it is terrible. But I'm wondering if I'm doing that wrong. Like, are you supposed to sip it over a long period of time, or can I just?
Girl, you do you on apple cider.
Okay, I was curious.
Yeah, I don't even care. I hate that stuff so much. It's just, there's no denying that is so freaking good for stomach acid, more than lemon.
Okay.
So it's like, I personally, because if we were all in a room together and there was like a gun to my head to take a shot of apple cider vinegar without throwing up, I would be dead. Like, no joke. I just cannot do it. So I have a huge ass thing of water and I put 1 tablespoon in it. And that is like, I have got to down this in under 5 minutes and it's going to be the worst part of my day. So you just have to do what works for you.
See, I'd rather just get the pain over with fast, even 5 minutes.
It's the worst gag reflex. I get that way with very little thing. That and pickled beets. Oh, we're not friends. So those 2 things. I actually don't think I like vinegar very much. Maybe that's what it is. Okay. Questions?
So, Kelsey, I am getting all the benefits and doing all the things and pooping and feel good and I'm sleeping and that's great. I should be more appreciative of those things than I am, but I'm, as you might already know, I'm also secretly here for weight loss. And given the transfer of my diet from what it was 2 weeks ago to now, like, I'm a little disappointed by the results of that. And I mean, they're great. They're probably better than dieting, but like in the middle, I ate regular, didn't snack, stayed on track yesterday and woke up and had like gained 2 pounds. And I'm like, what did I do? So yeah, if you can speak a little bit to that or.
Yeah. So did you lose weight over the course of the 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think I was so disappointed today. Now I'm just like not keeping track. It's not like in my brain, but I think I had lost like 7 pounds, which is great. And then gained 2 when I was really hoping to be closer to that like 10 mark, just like a milestone. So I did, but I just was kind of surprised. And then also, again, given the drastic change in my diet and lifestyle over this last 2 weeks, like just surprised that I would think I would probably get those results just by diet change alone. So I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to talk on weight loss. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to take off my health practitioner hat for just a second, and I'm going to go into sports nutrition for a minute, because that's also one of my loves. And I'm talking to everybody. So like Sydney, I don't want to be like harsh, but I also don't filter very well. So you will know that about me. Anything more than a 1% weight loss is unhealthy per week. It is when you lose more weight when anybody loses more weight than that, you are putting yourself in the perfect position to regain weight. You're also putting your body in the perfect position for hormonal imbalance, which once again will cause weight gain in the future. So if I were coaching anybody that wanted weight loss, I would turn them away if they wanted to have drastic weight loss. And that's because I know what happens in the body with weight loss in general. And I just don't do that kind of thing because it is so critical to maintain optimal health while losing weight at the same time. My goal with anybody, when I was doing mostly sports nutrition or I was doing mostly weight loss clients, was always to have the most amount of calories that I could possibly give somebody while still losing weight safely. Because what happens is if you're losing weight really fast, your metabolic function in your entire body is going to drop in relationship to that particular intake. That's why when people do something crazy like a 1,200 calorie diet or something like that, which let me just say is absolutely insane because your heart, your lungs, your liver, and your kidneys, just those 4 organs require about 1,000 to 1,100 calories just to function optimally. So then if you were on a 1,200 calorie diet, we're giving it the rest of our body 200 calories to survive, and then we expect that we don't get sick, right? So there's that. So but let's say we drop to 1,200 calories and then we're losing weight. I'm gonna draw my picture. Who wants to see the picture being drawn? You know what's gonna happen. Ooh, I'm dropping things too. Okay. So let's say your metabolic function is here. We're going to talk about my metabolic function. My metabolic function is about 2,100. That means that if I take in 2,100 calories every single day, I'm probably just going to maintain my weight. All right. Lucky me, right? I get to eat 2,100 calories every day. Okay. That's with my activity level. That's with how I sleep. That's with stress. That's with everything. Okay. 2,100 calories. Now, let's say I wanted to lose a few pounds, all right? Let's say I want to lose 5 pounds and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this fast. Let's get this shit done, right? I'm going to go down here to 1,200 calories. Well, you know I wouldn't do that because I just said I wouldn't do that. But let's just say that's what's happening, okay? I go down to 1,200 calories. Now, let's say that I'm 150 pounds right here. And I really want to get to 140 pounds. So I'm like, all right, let's get to 140 pounds. How am I going to do that? I'm going to drop to 1,200 calories. So what you're looking at is if you're doing this quickly, okay, you're going to drop really quickly with your metabolism. This is your metabolism. I'm at 2,100 calories that I burn a day, but suddenly my body is going to acclimate to that and it's going to come down here. Okay, now I'm only burning 1,200 calories. And who knows how long that takes? It's different for everybody, but this is called a metabolic adaptation, okay? So if you're at 2,100 calories, you drop to 1,200 calories, at some point you're gonna plateau, AKA metabolic adaptation. So now at 1,200 calories, I'm like, well, shoot, I only lost 2 pounds. I'm at 148. Am I gonna drop lower than 1,200 calories? Hell no, I'm not going to do that, but I know that I wouldn't do that, right? But what happens when I do that? I am now really putting my body in severe complications with every type of health issue, right? What am I going to do with 148 now? Because I really wanted to get to 140, right? So this is how your metabolism works. Your metabolism is not constant, just like your weight is never constant. Sydney, there is no way that you gained 2 pounds of body fat over the course of one day, right? Can somebody?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I hear you.
I know you guys know this. How many calories is 2 pounds?
7,000.
7,000.
Okay, so Sydney, let's say that you burn 2,100 calories in a day. Did you perhaps eat 9,000 calories yesterday?
I did not.
Okay. So why are we upset about 2 pounds then? Because it's a number, right? Because you see that and you're like, what the hell? Right, okay. So now let's talk about, I'm taking like this massive side journey. let's talk about how your body, or what your body is really made of, and why your body, you guys know this, I'm not even going to tell you what it is. I want you guys all to come off of mute and tell me what changes, what is it that changes how you weigh? What are the factors involved with what you see on the scale?
Hormones.
Water.
Salt.
Yep. What else?
Stress, inflammation.
Muscle.
Stress. Sleep.
What's the thing that we actually want to lose?
Fat.
Yeah. Does everybody know what glycogen is?
Sugar.
Sugar?
Yeah, pretty much. So glycogen is the stored form of glucose. Remember, you have glucose, right? That's going to break down from carbohydrates. You have your fatty acids and you have your amino acids. When you take in carbohydrates, you're breaking everything down and it goes all the way down to glucose. Circulating glucose in the blood is just called circulating glucose, but that glucose is going to find a home, and it's going to find a home in two spots. It's going to find a home in your muscle, and it's going to find a home in your liver. Those are the two places that it finds a home. So when you have, I know we've all done this, right? Who has had like 3 slices, 4 slices of pizza, and then they wake up the next day and they weigh themselves and they're like, what the hell? I'm like 3 pounds heavier. Why? You ate so much glycogen. Well, you eat so many carbs that broke down to glucose that was stored as glycogen in the muscle and the liver. Glycogen is heavy. Why is it heavy? Because it makes your muscle heavier. So people will see this a lot when, like, a gentleman, for example. So my husband, Sam, okay, he has a lot of muscle. Okay, he's a muscular guy. He has a lot of muscle. That guy could go like no carb for one day. What happens? He loses like 6 pounds. Why does he lose 6 pounds? Because he was active and moving, and his glycogen, because you need to have glycogen in the muscle, because when you have energy, you need energy. Glycogen is released from the muscle and the liver, mostly the muscle, and it gets used. Therefore, your muscle weighs less and less and less and less and less and less and less, right? Okay. So Sam could basically have 0 carbs for a day, and then he gets up the next day and he's 6 pounds lighter. Granted, all of these other things have to be in line, right? Okay, a lot of this is all water, by the way. So hormones are going to relate to water retention. How much water you have relates to how much salt you have. So those are a thing. Inflammation, if you have inflammation in your body, then you will have lost probably a lot of weight on the gut cleanse, right? And that's going to be something that we want to be considering. If you lost more than 3 pounds on the gut cleanse, you probably had some inflammation that was definitely hiding, right? And then the muscle goes back to the glycogen. Stress is going to go back to water intake, and hormone response back to water intake. And then sleep is going to go to hormone response, which is going to go to water, which is going to go to stress, and then back to water. Do you see what I'm saying? All of this relates to each other. So when we get on the scale and we're like, well, shit, I gained a pound from yesterday, I'm just going to give up, right? Which is a lot of us feel that way. It's very frustrating getting on there. But if we can look at the big picture and recognize that weight loss is not about a linear relationship. You can't just be consistent and assume that you're going to be like this. This is how fat loss works. But can we measure fat loss? No, we can't. Not unless you have a super fancy fat loss machine at home. And even then, those aren't that accurate. So just a heads up. But weight loss, what you see on the scale looks like this. Does that make sense? Don't gauge yourself and progress on what you see on the scale in short amounts of time. Gauge what you see on the scale in like large amounts of time. And remember, less than like 1% or less is healthy. I never ever recommend a woman being under 1,600 calories a day, ever. Because I don't want that on me that is like, oh, suddenly, you know, we're dealing with immune function and we're dealing with hormonal imbalances and we're dealing with hair loss, lack of period, all of those things. That's never a good idea. So if we're down and below that, we probably need to think about reverse dieting.
Thank you. And I've been at about 1,600 calories a day. So I'm not an extreme calorie person. I'm not an extreme dieter. I don't generally diet, period, which is maybe a little bit of the problem. But
that's actually a good thing, Sydney. That is a good thing.
Okay.
That probably means that you're going to see longer, like more sustainable progress because you weren't a chronic dieter. But I would say that if you can be patient and really just focus on, okay, you know, if you lose 1 to 2 pounds a week and you were super consistent and you manipulated your calorie intake to make sure that that was the trend, you're going to have so much more success than dropping and hoping for like mass weight loss, because 7 pounds during the gut cleanse is too much if it was body fat, but it wasn't all body fat, right? We probably lost water, we probably lost some glycogen, we definitely lost some inflammation because everybody that was on the gut cleanse lost some inflammation weight. So those are things to consider, is where did the weight come from, and how can we make this sustainable? Have as many calories as you possibly can with that 1 to 2 pound loss until you plateau and then reestablish.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that like, even with, because I am tracking the calories just because I happen to have an app and have used it before, but the 1,600 calories isn't like a goal, as it is more of a reflection of what I'm eating, like, and the recipes and the high intensity of vegetables. They just don't have a lot of calories, even though I'm eating like a lot. So
yeah, it's, and I love that you say that, because it's the healthy veggies, or not the healthy veggies, it's the nutrient rich, calorie empty foods that we're always trying to aim for, particularly in weight loss, but in overall health in general, because those are the foods that are going to give you the most nutrients. And digestion is always going to, I'm so glad that you mentioned weight loss, because I think that it's amazing how much freaking weight everybody lost. It's crazy. But you're always going to have better weight loss when you optimize digestion, because the metabolic function of your body is the digestive system. So if we have an issue with the metabolism, if we have an issue with a downregulation or a plateau, always start it with the digestion, always. If you have an issue with anything, you should start with digestion, because I'm obsessed with digestion. So you should too.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Questions?
Kelsey, how did you come up with your 2,100 base number?
I just made it up. What do you mean?
When you drew your little chart and you said 2,100 is your base amount of calories, and that's with not without activity. Did you really make it up, or is that your base?
No, I'm so teasing you, because I know that I can.
Oh, okay.
That is my baseline. So my baseline is anywhere, and your metabolism is always changing, right? You're burning more calories on one day than you are the next day, and so on. It's not fixed. It's not a fixed number. And as I just explained, you can downregulate and you can upregulate. So mine is about 2,100-ish. Again, it can go, sometimes it goes to 2000, but sometimes I eat 2000 calories, sometimes I eat 2500 calories, sometimes I eat like 1400 calories. Kind of just depends on the day, but on average, I take in about 2000 calories a day. And I know that that works as my baseline because I'm not gaining weight and I'm not losing weight. So I'm staying the same. So that would be my baseline.
Okay. So there's not like a machine that will tell us.
No, and if somebody promises that there is, they're lying, because they just,
good.
that's just not a thing. You know, that I actually really do, I think the InBody scans are good information, but it's just data, right? Like, how accurate can any of this be? I think it's really critical to always listen to your body and to just gauge like where things are. So I personally think that establishing a baseline calories is really important. So how much do you weigh now? How much are you eating on average over the course of 2 weeks? Divide that, get your median, and then that would be your baseline calories. And then, like, shoot, I'm only eating like 1600 calories a day, but I'm trying to lose weight. So am I going to go under 1600? Kelsey said I probably shouldn't. So not, at least not for long periods of time, just a heads up, not chronically. Then what's the next step, right? I like that this turned into weight loss. I haven't talked about weight loss in a minute.
I had another question. For 2.0, you have a section about working out. Mm-hmm. So is there a difference between the first version where we were kind of encouraged not to work out and this version?
I didn't say don't work out. So let me just say that.
Right. Yeah.
I want you guys I want your energy to be really focused on purging the body from toxins and from the crap that it doesn't need. Digestion is the biggest stressor that your body goes through every single day. So if we're, getting rid of like 1000 calorie workouts that are 6 days a week, then that's just going to be really beneficial for your digestion and putting yourself in a rest and digest state, really focusing on parasympathetic nervous system to just calm and actually chill. I think that what I'm saying in a 2.0 is more along the lines of, you've had the benefit for the first 2 weeks of really kind of recognizing when the body needs to relax. And I kind of want you to just continue that. I think that you guys should work out the way that feels good for you. The one thing that I would say is don't be a psycho and do like crazy HIIT workouts all the time. I don't do crazy HIIT workouts, well, really ever, but like once a week is probably as much as I will do a HIIT training workout before I can definitely tell that I'm losing muscle mass. I usually can tell because my butt gets flatter. Sorry if that's too much information, but I can definitely tell when that's happening. Or I can tell just by my mood. So be very curious about how exercise makes you feel and do the things that feel good, not in the moment. HIIT training always feels freaking good when you're in the moment because of the mass release of dopamine, okay? Doesn't feel good always when you're like, well, then I couldn't do anything the rest of the day because I was so tired. Yeah, that's just right. There's something wrong. So how does exercise make you feel all the time? And do that.
Perfect.
Good. I'm going to preview the 2.0 so that you guys can see it, but I want to make sure you guys have all your questions answered. Anyone curious about the 2.0?
Yes.
Let's go. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share it with you guys. This is what it looks like. Here's the opening letter. I'll let you read that later because it's, but it's basically why I wanted to do the 2.0, because when you guys are you're currently in the basic elimination diet, which is awesome. You can expect expand this if you need to into other foods that are going to be affecting you, or may be affecting you, I should say. So, you know, with eggs, soy, corn, shellfish, nuts, things like that, that could be a highly inflammatory food. Those could be things that you want to play around with. Every single section has new information. You still have the Ask Kelsey here. We are going to be doing the Zoom links for the 2.0s and then also for the newest gut cleansers that are starting on Monday. And those are going to be for the next 4 weeks. So you will be here hanging out with me for the next 4 weeks. The next 2-week gut cleansers, you'll have it for 2 weeks. And then the 2.0s, you'll have me for 4 weeks. So if you take a peek at all of this, continuing with the Cleanse 2.0, it's just some information on like exactly what we're doing. We're in Ruby. You've seen this before. Now you're going to see caffeine and a little bit more caffeine, other food considerations. And then I'll just tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast, but I just want to make sure you guys see it. Other supplement options are in here as well. I believe there are 3 of them, and those supplement options are really going to, I explain why you would be taking certain ones. Obviously they're recommendations and you guys can do what makes the most sense for you. The gut cleanse itself is super helpful without it, but there's some other ones in here that's helpful for leaky gut. We spend some time in leaky gut in this particular 2.0, and then we also spend some time with additional digestive distress. More on lifestyle mediators in this one, and I think that that we're talking about the big 3 in this one. I think I posted something about on Instagram about it, but just really going into a little bit more information on what we want to be looking for and feeling for, and what our goals are during the Gut Cleanse 2.0. And then you have nutrition and hydration. There's some more information in there as well. Kitchen preparation, more information, more considerations. So this is going to be like your kind of hub over here. This one in problem solving for anybody that's like, shoot, I know that I need a little extra support with some of the symptoms that I can be having, and let me clarify on what those symptoms are. But it's like, you know, it's going to be anything from digestion to anything outside of it. Anything that doesn't feel good on your body is definitely something that you need to dig deeper into. Migraines, I know, has come up for a few of you guys. Migraines almost always are going to be a food sensitivity that just needs to be identified. So we go into that in more detail here, and more considerations, and then problem solving. Daily protocol, you have a different daily protocol. And once again, you can kind of play around with what makes the most sense for you. And what you choose to do. And then recipe guide, new recipes. You've got smoothies, breakfast salads, hearties, and then snacks, drinks. Final note from me, and of course your Zoom sessions that you can sign up for. So that's everything. That's everything I have for you. Paige had a really good thought on, in this one, everything is right now is all the recipes are like built into the page. So I'm going to try to get that back into a PDF so you guys can download the PDF and just print it out. So I'm working on that too. Questions on 2.0?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if for those of us that are starting new at this, is there going to be an introduction on Monday?
Your introduction is on Friday. Your introduction is right now.
Oh, okay.
You're basically, if you're doing the 2.0, you're literally going to do the same thing that you have been doing, but you're going to read through the 2.0 and decide what makes sense for your current state. So what are your goals? What do you want to see? I go through all of that so you can see, like, you know, these are my symptoms, or these are my goals, or, you know, I'm dealing with X, Y, or Z, and you can kind of make decisions based on what it says in there. Both programs are always designed so that you actually don't need me, because I'm not always going to do these with groups, right? People can do them on their own. So I wrote it for you guys to be able to do on your own. And if it doesn't make sense, ask Kelsey. I'll be right there. I'm pretty responsive. Yes. I think one time I panicked and I was like, oh shoot, it's been like 5 hours. I'm so sorry. I was making tamari mix and the coconut maple one from the 2.0, which is like I'm obsessed with right now. The cereal, there's a cereal in there. It's the buckwheat, it's like buckwheat coconut maple cereal. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Obsessed with that right now.
Kelsey, this is Shannon. I have a question.
What's up, Shannon?
If you do the 2.0, I guess my question is, like, when you do something like this, are you super strict? Like, you don't have any alcohol? I mean, 2 weeks was totally doable, but like the 4 weeks if you like fall off the bandwagon one night, is that horrible, or how does that work?
No. So this is really, and again, this kind of depends on where you want to go with it. So I'll give you an example. I have a gentleman that I am running through the gut cleanse and the gut cleanse 2.0. And we work one-on-one together. So I'm tailoring both of these according to what he needs and his story and journey. He's got some stuff that we really need to work on. So for him, my conversation is, you are strict, you are intense. This is what we're doing. Let's focus for 6 weeks. I got you. I swear. Let's do this, right? Because he is so motivated to find answers on why he isn't feeling well. Now, for someone like Kylie, right, who is like, girl, spring break, like I just want to have a piece of cheese and some freaking wine, right? And she's going into the 2.0. It's like she is trying to find a new lifestyle that makes sense for her from what she was doing to what she can do sustainably for the rest of her life. So then it becomes more of a curiosity once again of, okay, Shannon, so if you want to have a glass of wine, it's like, great, have a glass of wine and see what happens, right? If you have like 3 shots of vodka, I mean, tell me how you feel. Like, I want to know. But like, what makes sense for you, and what are the things you miss the most, right? And start to dabble those in here and there as you're still working through the 2.0, thinking like, okay, I can totally do this, but I miss this. Is there anything in particular that you're missing right now that you're kind of thinking of?
Cheese, I guess. Yeah. Like I'm fine. I've been really strict. I have not drank. I've done, everything and followed it pretty strict, but, yeah. And I guess I'm wondering, maybe impatient too, on figuring out like what my sensitivity is. So do I add cheese back in and see if it's really the gluten or that also. So
yeah. And we will explore that in 2.0 more, because I think a lot of us are curious on how to reintroduce. And I don't typically recommend that people reintroduce too much with dairy or gluten until they've had it out of their system for a while. So Shannon, for you, I would say that, we have this conversation again next week and you're like, Kels, I'm ready to like reintroduce cheese now. And I say, okay, cool. Let's try that in an omelet tomorrow and see how you do. And then do a little bit more at lunch and then do a little bit more at dinner. But then you have to kind of think about lactose levels. And this is probably a different conversation or a separate conversation, but choosing things that are maybe a little bit lower in lactose first, which is typically going to be the hard cheeses. Sometimes it can be like a feta, things like that are going to be low lactose, trying those first for a day, and then maybe going into a moderate lactose and then maybe a higher lactose, because you are typically going to, if you haven't had dairy in like 4 weeks and then you have something like ice cream, almost everyone's going to react.
Right.
Super high lactose, not to mention the extra fat and the sugar that's just going to amplify the lactose and make that a really tough vehicle to swallow. So being strategic about it is really going to be a big thing. That's what we're going to kind of play around in the 2.0 as well for those people that have some food sensitivities is like, how do we reintroduce responsibly and in a way that makes sense for your life and not someone else's? Because
Okay.
Kylie's reintroduction is going to be different than yours. That's going to be different than Christy's.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else? Cool. Cool. Did we nail it?
You did.
I love it when that happens. Okay. Does anybody have anything exciting to report? Can you tell me like how you feel? I've been hearing about it nonstop and I'm over the moon. I assumed that would happen because I built this thing. So I was like, all right, let's be real with this. But how are we feeling?
Really good.
Yeah. I want everyone that's ready to talk or say something to give me just like 1 or 2 things that were the biggest game changers. So was it sleep? Was it focus? Was it the weight loss? Was it your skin? Like, what was it?
Mine was sleep and the brain fog, for sure. That got better. Brain fog went away and kind of mostly.
Yeah.
And still have 3 kids.
Well,
so it doesn't fully disappear.
No.
But my sleep got a lot better too.
Perfect. Your brain fog will probably get better and better as the gluten is out of the system, because gluten's usually the main culprit in brain fog.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it had to do with eliminating caffeine too.
Could be. It's probably a little bit of both. And sugar.
Yeah.
Could be sugar too.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm less tired throughout the day, which is a big win for me because I've been feeling just horribly, horribly fatigued. So if it continues to improve, I'll be thrilled.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It will continue to improve, my dear.
Good. Then
And
I'll
if
keep doing it.
it doesn't, you and I are going to just figure it out. So
okay.
If you know me at all, which I think a lot of you know me at all, I'm really, really stubborn. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to figure out the answer. So don't you worry, Christy. We'll figure it out if it didn't get better.
Okay.
I think brain fog for me, and also just like not feeling bloated, like really at all, which was nice. So.
Yeah. It's always nice to feel like you're not pregnant when you're not pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hated being pregnant. What else? Good.
I would say the same, probably less bloated. And I think it forced me to not snack on things that I shouldn't and actually make meals and cook, or like just like really think more about what to my body with a busy schedule. So yeah, it's a good slap in the face, but just like, don't eat that. What are you doing? Yeah. So, yeah.
It's crazy how things can be so habitual, right? Like or mindless. And it's not because we're mindless people, it's because we're constantly stimulated all day long. And when we're constantly plugged in all day long, when we're actually unplugged, it's like we actually don't know what we're doing and we wander around aimlessly like nomads, and then we find Pringles. Like, what just happened? Was that just me? Okay. Anybody else?
I noticed it in my skin a little bit, and the bloating, but my skin, I was diagnosed with rosacea after I had my 3rd baby, and I feel like that has gotten better.
Yeah, that's cool, Shannon. And that will continue to get better because rosacea is inflammation. So, hey, let's get rid of the inflammation and all will be well in the world. Cool. Anybody else? Awesome. Okay. Well, go and have some sweet and smoky chili or whatever it is that you're having tonight, because you still have 2 days on this, right? And if I see you in the 2.0, then I will see you this time, same time next week. And I'm going to figure out the Zoom thing because it's very, very frustrating, but at least everybody got here. So that's positive. But I will figure that out. Otherwise, I will see you guys all next week. Remember to continue using the Ask Kelsey, and email me if you have questions. Your Gut Cleanse 2.0 promo does expire on Sunday. So heads up on that and let me know if you have questions on if that's the right thing for you. Otherwise, we'll see you guys soon and have an amazing night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye. I also